Welcome to a new day of learning. For this video, we're going to discuss critical reading strategies in literature. Have you ever familiarized yourself with different reading skills? Or apply reading skills in analyzing reading materials? In addition, have you ever managed to produce a well-written interpretation of a certain literary materials? All reading is an active, reflective, problem-solving process. We do not simply read words, we read ideas, thoughts that spring from the relationships of various assertions. Actually, to non-critical readers, texts provide facts. But to critical readers, it is to recognize the author's purpose, to understand tone and persuasive elements, and to recognize bias. In essence, critical readers gain facts and adapt interpretation. To help you in your critical reading, Daniel J. Kurland, 2000, presented steps or modes of analysis that are reflected in three types of reading and discussion. These three were: what the text says is the restatement, what the text does is the description, and what the text means is the interpretation. Non-critical reading is satisfied with recognizing what the text says and restating the key marks, while critical reading goes two steps further. Having recognized what the text says, it reflects on what the text does. By making such remarks, it asks questions like: is it offering examples, arguing, appealing for sympathy, or making a contrast to clarify a point? Finally, critical readers then infer the text as a whole, or what it means, based on the earlier analysis. To clarify what a text says, simply talk about the same topic as what is written in the original text. What a text does, discuss and examine the aspects of the discussion or the content of the text. Lastly, what a text means, analyze the text and assert a meaning for the text as a whole. Let us proceed with critical reading strategies that may help you cope with different texts. First, we have the previewing, which helps prepare your mind for the barrage of information that is to come when you do the actual reading. When you preview a text, you skim it to get the big picture or an overview of the entire text and might consider the following: who wrote the text? What are the author's other works? By having this information, the reader can have an idea of how the author constructs the flow of his work and his common content. If he has not encountered the author yet, the reader can do a little research before proceeding to the text. Researching may lead to lessening expectation or heightening readers' respect to the author. Where and when was the text published? What were the major events around? By knowing these details, reader can easily imagine the settings, since this give the key ideas of the state and features of the place by the provided timeline of publication. Major events like uplifting human rights from discrimination, before and after war, fashion elevation, social interaction, and technological evolution were some of the popular discussions that can be involved in a literary work. If not directly discussed, it may affect the character's point of views on story, or in other texts may imply ideas to conceptualize clues. What can you infer about the text based on the title? Some titles directly define the content, but for some, it opposes this belief. Titles are very important since it gives the reader a catch from the content, and it is also the title that readers behold for a long time by the rate of its effect. What seems to be the general progression or organization of ideas based on the chapter titles or section headings and subheadings? Before reading a text, it will be a good help if readers also interpret the subheadings, if provided. Looking further to chapter titles or section headings can be easily applied on novels. Having in mind the progression or organization of the ideas provides the reader a pinch of direction and expectation from the literary piece. What is your purpose for reading the text? Some may say it is for fun, indicating it is their hobby. Others may state the need in educating oneself, and whether the first, second, or you have your own reason for reading a text, still the most important thing is the valuables you take parallel your objectives afterwards. Next, we have annotating. That involves highlighting or making notes of important ideas in the text. This can be done by doing the following. With a pencil or a pen in hand, underline important ideas such as the thesis, topic sentences, and key concepts. Also highlight unfamiliar words so you can look them up later. Make notes such as questions and comments or responses on the margins as you read. Develop a symbol system. You may draw symbols to mark important words or sentences so that the text will not appear cluttered. Third is contextualizing. When you contextualize, you consider the historical, cultural, or biographical context of the text. Identify the context in which the text was written and determine how this context differs from your own. Next, we have outlining and summarizing. Outlining and summarizing the text help you identify the main ideas in the text and express them again in your own words. In outlining the text, you identify the basic structure of the text and make connections between those ideas. Outlining helps you understand how the author developed the text through the ideas presented. After making an outline, you can now summarize the text. Summarizing the text allows you to present your understanding of the text by reviewing and synthesizing important ideas, and then restating them in your own words. Fifth, we have analyzing. Analyzing a text deals with examining the information presented to support the author's arguments. In analyzing a text, you look at the evidence, sources, and author's bias or biases, considering the following questions. Is there enough evidence to support the author's argument? Does the evidence relate to and support the thesis or the main point the author is trying to convey? Are the pieces of evidence relevant, credible, and up-to-date? Are the sources of information credible? Why did the author take that particular position? What is the author's background that may have led to or influenced his or her position? If a particular text proposed an argument, it is important to locate the author's disposition and influences. Sixth is rereading. Rereading requires a repeated examination of the text to enable you to improve your comprehension of the text and to identify ideas that you may not have noticed in initial reading. Critical readers read the text more than once to fully grasp the meaning of the text and what the author is conveying. Lastly, responding. After you have developed a clear understanding of the text, you are now ready to respond to the text. Responding to the text means drawing meaning from what you have read and presenting it in writing or talking about it to others. When you respond to a text, you express your thoughts, feelings, and questions about the text. You can write why you agree or disagree with the text or the author's argument, or you can interpret the text. You can also respond to a text by discussing it with others. Sharing the information that you gained from a text with others who have read the same text is a good way to check your understanding. Now, let us apply the 7 critical reading strategies on the text entitled Birthday Party by Katharine Brush for our comprehension check. For the preview of the text, the story was written by Katharine Brush. Some of her works were Glitter and The Young Man of Manhattan. Her first novel, Glitter, was published in 1926 to favorable reviews, and her novel, Young Man of Manhattan, was named the 9th best-selling novel of 1930 by Publishers Weekly, and later that year was made into film. Have you encountered any of this? If not, Brush's works were characterized by her narrative style and wit. Birthday Party was one of them and was published on March 16, 1946 by The New Yorker. Her first marriage ended in divorce. She moved to New York City and remarried in 1929, but the marriage ended in divorce in 1941. From the title itself, readers should expect a celebration. Are you curious of how it ended? As we read, we can also apply annotation. Let's take highlights on important details on the text where main ideas will be in bold, then supporting details will be underlined, and vocabulary words will be italicized. Are the highlighted vocabulary words familiar to you? Do the sentences have relationships? Let us have a glimpse of the author's biography. Katharine Brush for contextualization of the text. Katharine Brush, born on August 15, 1902 and died on June 10, 1952, was an American newspaper columnist, short story writer, and novelist. In the era of 1920s to 1930s, she was considered one of the country's most widely read fiction writers, as well as one of the highest paid women writers of her time. Several of her books were bestsellers, and several others were made into movies. As mentioned earlier, her first and second marriage ended up in divorce. Have it come to your mind that this situation may have led her to the idea of creating such a story? Since we have produced the text with markings, this can help us on outlining the text. Have you noticed the connections of main ideas and supporting details of the text? As it was said in the first phrase, they were a couple in their late 30s. The main idea of being a couple has been supported by the details. They looked unmistakably married, and their age of 30 was emphasized through the physical descriptions given by the author. The man had a round, self-satisfied face with glasses on it. The woman was fadingly pretty in a big hat. For the sentence, it suddenly became obvious that this was an occasion. Occasion was supported by the line, in fact, the husband's birthday, and suddenly became obvious was supported by the line, the wife had planned a little surprise for him. Now, the line, the wife had planned a little surprise for him, was then supported by small but glossy birthday cake with one pink candle burning in the center, and violin and piano orchestra played Happy Birthday to You. Can you give connections for the other main ideas and supporting details? Do you think you can provide a summary of the story? I know that you can, so let's proceed with analyzing. Do you think this really happened in real life? Have you encountered the same situation? Or have you been on this situation? How have you felt if you were the one being surprised? Is it real that people take hard time in appreciating someone's effort? Is it inhumane? If you were the wife, how would you feel and respond to the situation? From a 1940s literary piece, do declining surprises were the same as of today? Why do you think the author have written this particular story? You can now take a rereading of the text to check if you have missed some important details. Now that you clearly understand the text, you are ready for the last part of critical reading strategies, which is responding. You can now share it with your classmates or friends and check if you have the same understanding of the text. This is the end of our discussion. See you on our next lesson!